Welcome everyone, I'm Fungisai Moronga in Zambia and this is Africa Matters. Worldwide, nearly 700,000 people contracted cholera last year and 4,000 of them died. That's according to the data from the World Health Organization, which has classified cholera's resurgence as a grade 3 emergency, its highest risk level. We ask what's fueling the surge and what can be done to contain it. At least 10 African countries are grappling with cholera outbreaks at the moment. Cholera is both preventable and predictable, but it can kill within hours if left untreated. Malawi, Mozambique, Zambia, and Zimbabwe are all battling to contain a surge in cases. Vaccine shortages, limited access to safe drinking water, and inadequate sanitation are complicating the response. Let's take a look at the countries that have been badly affected so far. Mozambique is facing its worst cholera outbreak in decades, with over 10,000 cases recorded since the beginning of October last year and 25 lives lost. In the same time frame, Zambia has recorded nearly 14,000 cases and more than 500 deaths, which UNICEF says are mostly children. Heavy rains continue to hamper access to safe water. Malawi is facing the deadliest cholera outbreak in its history. Nearly 60,000 people have been infected since March 2022, and nearly 2,000 have died. The government says there's been a significant decline in cases since November last year. And in Zimbabwe, more than 19,000 people have been infected with the waterborne disease, and about 400 people have died, as Columbus Mavunga explains from Harare.
This is Kwazana Polyclinic, one of the health institutions which authorities here in Zimbabwe have turned into cholera treatment centers. Official figures say over 19,000 people have been infected by the waterborne disease, and about 400 people have died. Zimbabweans say since the beginning of the outbreak last year, they have learned a lot.
Cholera needs the availability of clean water. That's the first thing. Secondly, if it was possible to get more boreholes, especially in our community, because we only have one borehole here and another one some distance away. We have a few boreholes, and that's our greatest challenge, and our water supply is really low.
But the main problem for cholera, I think, is because of litter. They are throwing litter everywhere. And we don't have to blame the residents. The problem, I think, is with the city of Harare. Why I'm saying is with the city of Harare, because there's no tippers. There's no bins. They are not supplying bins. They are not carrying out their duties.
Zimbabwe's worst cholera outbreak was between 2008 and 2009, when about 5,000 people died. Public health experts say Zimbabwe's infrastructure hasn't changed much since then.
Yeah, we've got a challenge. I think the main challenge is the resources. As I mentioned, the issue of water treatment, money. There's no money to treat the water for Harare. The water might be there, a lot of it in next year, but the capacity to treat it is not there, because the Harare is not collecting enough to treat enough water for Harare.
International aid organizations have started chipping in to rescue the situation, but not much has changed, as the United Nations say the country is receiving about 1,000 new cases of cholera each week since the beginning of the year.
I am now joined by Dr. Maziyanga Mazaba Liwewe, a director at the Zambian National Public Health Institute here in Lusaka. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Doctor, why do we keep seeing a resurgence of cholera outbreaks, and are they becoming more severe?
Allow me to remind everybody that cholera is actually a global issue. It's a global public health problem, and of course there are certain countries that seem to be more vulnerable. We're seeing the African continent more vulnerable, and other places like Asia and war-torn areas and so on having these outbreaks. And we're seeing that globally, between 1 and 4 million people, cases are recorded, worldwide, and even up to over 400,000 people dying from this disease. Cholera is transmitted mainly through contaminated water. consumption of contaminated water. And we've also seen in the recent years that contaminated food also becomes a factor. And so when you look at issues of taking contaminated water, it brings us to the fact that we have a lot of issues surrounding our wash facilities, water, sanitation, hygiene. And in a lot of these places where we are finding cholera outbreaks, that is the challenge. Inadequate access to clean and safe water by the communities. And I think this has been driven by, the drastic urbanization leading to slums, unplanned slums or unplanned settlements. And because they are unplanned, their structures for wash or water and sanitation are not there or are limited. We see a lot of shallow wells in some of these places, not deep enough latrines. And so when you see in times when we have a lot of rain and all these flash floods and so on and so forth, the latrines overflow, and then there's a mixture of the drinking water or the water in the shallow wells and other wells that are not well protected, and that cross-contamination leading to this cholera outbreaks.
What should people do if they suspect that they're infected with cholera, and what can they do first to prevent it from spreading?
I talked about food also being a conveyance for the transmission of cholera. It is important that your food is thoroughly cooked, and the person who's cooking that food must observe hygiene. So the environment that you're in, you wash your hands, cook your food thoroughly, eat it while it's hot. Food must always be covered just before you eat it, and even after you've left some over. If you intend to eat it later on, make sure it's covered, secured properly, and then reheated before it's eaten, just in case there was a space for contamination. Washing of hands is, because cholera is transmitted through an oral fecal route. So you go to the toilet, clean yourself up, and walk out. You may not even be symptomatic, but you may be carrying the bacteria because we're in an outbreak setup. And then you go and cook for everybody or serve everybody, contaminate, and the person who is vulnerable gets sick. So we must make sure that we are always observing hand hygiene before cooking, after using the toilet, and when you think that you've been into contact with waste, doing changing of a nappy or bathing somebody who's unwell and things like that. So hygiene remains key in this factor.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
To Cameroon now, which became the first country in the world to start routine vaccinations for children against malaria. A batch of more than 300,000 doses of RTSS, the first malaria vaccine recommended by the World Health Organization, was received by the Central African nation in November last year. Authorities hope it will help tackle the mosquito-borne disease, which kills nearly 500,000 children under the age of 5 each year in Africa. Arison Tamfu reports from Douala.
5-month-old Nadia doesn't like needles, but she's lucky to be among the first children to be vaccinated against malaria. It is a first for the Central African nation of Cameroon.
It's a vaccine that is given to children aged 6 months for the first dose, 7 months for the second dose, 9 months for the third dose, and 24 months of age for the fourth dose. And children are supposed to take all these doses in order to be well protected. So the vaccine is not oral, it's injectable.
The vaccines are provided free of charge at primary health care centers. The ultimate aim is to reach all children under 5 years old. Authorities expect that most children will show up to get their shots despite a sluggish start. This new campaign is yet to gain momentum because some parents are still skeptical about the new vaccine. But for those already making sure their children are jabbed, they say it is a source of relief and reassurance for their children's health.
I am full of joy that my child has taken her first vaccine against malaria today. Her mother was unavailable and I decided to bring her here myself because of the importance of this vaccination. I'm pleased especially given the fact that malaria kills children quite early. I brought her here early to avoid the negative consequences of malaria and also the treatment which is sometimes expensive. I know with this vaccination I will not spend a lot in future.
Malaria, a mosquito-borne parasite, kills more than 600,000 people per year, according to the WHO. 2/3 are under the age of 5. Malaria is responsible for 70% of deaths among children in Cameroon, according to the country's health ministry. Officials believe the campaign is a vital step forward.
We have other preventive measures that we don't need to neglect. Thus, we have the use of impregnated mosquito nets. We have the administration of malaria treatment in young children. And then we also have to clean our environment. So you see, if the vaccination is coming in to all these measures, it's coming as an additional measure. And we are optimistic that by the time we combine these measures, children will be highly protected from malaria.
Cameroon took delivery in November last year of over 300,000 doses of RTSS, the first malaria vaccine to be approved by the WHO. Since 2019, more than 2 million children have been jabbed in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi in a pilot phase, resulting in substantial reductions in severe malaria illness and hospitalizations. The hope now is to win the battle against malaria, one child at a time. Arisin Tamfo, Africa Matters, Douala, Cameroon.
To Malawi next, where an agricultural engineering graduate is leading a groundbreaking initiative to revolutionize farming using cutting-edge technology. Working with the school, coding and digital skills training center Next Gen Labs in capital Lilongwe, the 26-year-old is empowering farmers to overcome a range of challenges. Lamek Masina reports from Lilongwe.
Providence Marilo's latest innovation is a computer program known as Aqua Real Time, which monitors quality water levels in rivers, lakes and ponds. Using sensors that transmit data directly to his computer, the agricultural engineer has eliminated the need for manual measurements, revolutionizing the way environmental data is collected.
So with that, we'd like to be able to detect any hazardous changes that are taking place, such as, let's say, the levels of the water increasing, and we can be able to pinpoint where a flood can take place. Also, if there's a change in, let's say, the water quality, we can be able to pinpoint if there's pollution taking place.
Maliro has also implemented a similar system designed to monitor temperature and humidity in smart greenhouses.
As far as greenhouses, you can measure different parameters such as the temperature, the humidity, and whether it's even the crop itself. You can measure the soil. You can measure how much moisture there is in the soil so that you can determine when to irrigate.
This comes at a time when Malawi grapples with increasing climate-related challenges, including cyclones, drought, and pests. The initiative aims to empower farmers to navigate and thrive in the face of these challenges. Flooding from last year's cyclone Freddy killed almost 2,000 people and washed away 2,000 square kilometers of crops in southern Malawi. The devastation highlighted the need for innovations to monitor changing weather patterns and other environmental factors. Maliro is among the first group of agricultural trainees at the Next Gen Lab Tech Hub, which specializes in digital skills training. It trains graduates from the University of Agriculture and Natural Resources to become tech-savvy entrepreneurs.
When we actually bring tech and agriculture together, we're going to maximize on our output. And by output, I mean the produce that we actually develop, the produce that we get out of farming. Because the current systems that we have are all manual and manpower. So with the help of tech gets to work better than the manpower that we have on the ground.
However, some analysts fear that encouraging widespread adoption of agricultural technology among local farmers across Malawi, where the average level of ICT uptake is just 30%, poses a significant challenge. In the meantime, the Next Gen Lab is working to ensure that innovations are user-friendly and can be easily implemented by rural farmers. Lamek Masina, Africa Matters, Lilongwe.
While climate activists around the world urge governments to transition away from fossil fuels to varying degrees of success, one company in Benin is transforming everyday biowaste into a powerful new energy source. Rumesa Choda brings us that story.
These leftovers are more than just food waste. They can be used all over again, but in different ways, to cook or even to heat a house. It's thanks to Enoch Gnaga's firm, Benin Biogas, which transforms everyday bio-waste into energy.
On this farm, all the waste from livestock and processing will be recovered as gas products and can be used for things like powering ovens and producing electricity.
Under Gnaga's leadership, hundreds of homes and more than a dozen farms in Benin are now producing energy this way. His small but dedicated team has built networks of concrete tanks ranging from 10 to 124 cubic meters beneath neighborhoods and industrial zones. And they are reactors transforming organic waste into biogas, a methane-rich energy source that now provides cooking and heating fuel for over 560 households. Gnaga says he was inspired by an accident.
As a student, we noticed that when we left class with the power outages, it was really difficult. I got into the mindset of one day being able to think about solving the problem of electrical energy. One evening, I was preparing food, and inadvertently, the candle I was using in the kitchen fell into my food waste bin, and it caught fire. When it caught fire, I thought, what is this? I became interested in this by discussing with my environmental chemistry professor. That's where he told me that it was okay. It's biogas.
So far, Benin Biogas has expanded into surrounding areas and can provide 24-hour off-grid electricity.
We need to think with simple solutions to create in our environment, solutions so that the population really acclimatizes, adopts the technology. You can see what we already do locally. Everywhere we have masons at home, and that's where we trained. We took teams, we started working with them. And in the end, we saw that by building in the ground, this allows us to work very simply, without machines, without anything besides the waste that we already produce in our homes, on our farms.
Gnaga says this doesn't signal the end of fuel usage. But in a world grappling with climate change and the search for sustainable energy solutions, he hopes that the full waste-to-energy cycle of Benin Biogas will bring about a revitalized commitment to environmental sustainability, in his country at least. Rumesa Chodar, Africa Matters.
Millions of used car tires contribute to the world's growing waste problem every year. They either end up in the landfills or are burnt, which releases toxic fumes into the atmosphere. But now, one Nigerian company has found a way to give discarded tires a second life. Elias Avci reports.
These tires are on a journey to be turned into new materials, thanks to Nigeria's Free Recycle company. First, they're ground into small pieces, and then they're mixed with an adhesive to help shape them into their new form.
We have solution for insulation, we have solution for transportation flooring as well. And now we're also moving into the sustainable fashion space. We're rolling out our flip-flops made from the same recycled tires. We're rolling out our flip-flops, our slippers, our slides, and even bags.
It takes between 50 and 80 years for a tire to completely decompose. And with 290 million of them discarded every year, it's a big problem.
What happens over time is to make space for new waste, for new solid waste, we usually have to resort to burning them. And burning them will release CO2 emissions as well as other greenhouse gases, which are quite detrimental to our climate. And also some of the tires we've discovered end up in our drainages, and during the raining season, this contributes to flooding in some areas, especially in major cities like Lagos. And then you also have piles of tires, stockpiles in waste grounds. Over time, they collect waters, and this becomes a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And then you have a huge surge in the spread of malaria.
Zoki commissioned Free Recycle to come up with a flooring solution for a school.
Environmentally, they're making good use of materials which is usually sent to waste or burnt, which causes major air pollution. The trend to using sustainable materials, reusing, recycling, and making good use of materials that's usually sent to waste will catch on, and eventually it will catch on in Africa.
The company was founded in 2018 with just a handful of employees. Now more than 150 people work on the site. And they say their products have prevented more than 8,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions from being released into the environment. Ilyas Avcı, Africa Matters.
Now to Senegal, where researchers warn of severe levels of pollution in the capital. The once stunning beach of Dakar's Han Bay has now become a breeding ground for bacteria with hazardous material piling up on the coast. The government has taken some action to clean up the area, but many wonder if it's too little, too late. Chubra Akoch has that story.
Dakar's Han Bay used to be one of the most popular and spectacular beaches in Senegal. But it's now awash with plastic litter and wastewater.
Han Bay has been polluted since the late 1970s when we witnessed extreme pollution. You couldn't swim without stepping on organic waste first, then solid waste of all kinds. Then we noticed that when you bathe, your skin is covered in oil, and that started to cause us real problems.
The bay is close to Dakar's growing manufacturing and industrial neighborhoods and increasingly dense residential areas. Every few hundred meters, a sewage pipe discharges into the sea.
Pollution comes mainly from domestic and industrial wastewater, so it's mixed, and above all, untreated water. That is the main source of pollution of Han Bay. We also have plastic debris.
The government has announced resumption of a stalled cleanup project backed by the French Development Agency, among other donors. The French group Suez is building a wastewater treatment plant on the coast. It was set to begin operations next year, but its construction has been delayed.
It scares the fish away too, and you can't get the big fish either. And again, it creates a lot of sickness for us, the people working here. It puts a lot of pressure on us.
The project coordinators say convincing manufacturers to participate is difficult, as the treatment processes usually come with additional costs. In the meantime, some brave residents continue to use the bay at their own peril. Kübra Akkoç, Africa Matters.
To Ivory Coast now, where the former champions Algeria crashing out in a group stage after a shock defeat by Mauritania is one of the many highlights of the Africa Cup of Nations so far. 5 goals from Equatorial Guinea's Emilio Nsueyo, who plays as a defender for the Spanish 3rd Division team, has also been the talk of the town, as Doha El Bouyewe reports.
In a shocking turn of events, football powerhouses Algeria and Ghana faced early exits from the tournament, succumbing to the prowess of underdog teams.
We were expecting to win by 2-3-0, but at the end we weren't lucky.
Mauritania achieved a historic milestone by securing its first ever qualification to the round of 16. The underdog team managed to beat the 2019 AFCON champions Algeria in a nail-biting encounter with a 1-0 scoreline.
I told them that today we need to write history. Mauritania now has written it.
Morocco's 1-0 win over Zambia on Wednesday had the knock-on effect of sending Ivory Coast through to the last 16, a day after the tournament hosts sacked their coach. The Elephant had been staring at the prospect of a humiliating group stage after a stunning 4-0 defeat by Equatorial Guinea. In a surprising turn of events, Emilio Inisu, a defender for undisclosed club, has become the current top scorer with an impressive tally of 5 goals in just 3 games. Inisu, known for his versatility, typically plays as a right back in the Spanish third tier, but showcases his offensive skills as a winger for the Equatorial Guinea national team. Namibia also made history by qualifying for the round of 16 for the first time on Wednesday after a 0-0 draw against Group E winners Mali.
This week we explore Ndola, a major commercial city in north-central Zambia. It's the gateway to the country's copper mining region and has experienced rapid and extensive development in the recent years. Let's take a closer look. That wraps up our show. Let us know what you think of the stories we've covered this week and share your ideas on what you'd like us to see us cover on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. You can also find us on YouTube by searching for TRT World Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's a goodbye from me, Fungisai Moronga in Lusaka.